Hi, I'm Pam. I'm your childbirth educator. We've been doing this course together by text mail and by text message and by email, and I want to begin to talk about labour, but before I can do, I wanted to talk about the different positions that baby can get themselves into inside your tummy and why that happens. What we do when you go along to your antenatal visits, from 36 weeks, it's important, up till now, from 24 weeks, midwives have been measuring your tummy to make sure baby's growing, because depending on how many weeks you are, at 24 weeks you should be 24 centimetres, at 36 weeks you should be 36 centimetres, and that's the measurement that we use to make sure that babies are growing properly. Now, up to 36 weeks, it's not as important that we know directly the position at every visit, because some mums don't like their tummies to be pressed an awful lot, because it can get quite sore. So at 36 weeks, it's important then that we identify what position baby's in, and especially we need to know that baby is head down, ready to come down through the pelvis during labour. Now, when you go along to your antenatal visits, what the midwife will do is write down in your notes the position that baby is in. Now, sometimes she will write it down with some letters, and these are ROA, or LOA, ROP, LOP, OP and OA, and that represents the different positions. And what we're identifying is that the back is on the right or the left, and that the head is towards the front or the back. And sometimes what she's been doing, some midwives, is just draw a picture that represents what position that baby's in. And then she's been recording about the heart rate, that she's heard the baby's heartbeat and the baby's movements. Now, really, during the day you should have 10 movements of baby during the day, and as baby gets bigger towards the due date, then sometimes those movements can be very small in comparison to what they were at the beginning, but you have to count each little individual movement. Even hiccups, each hiccup can count as one movement. And so once you've reached your 10 movements for the day, you don't really need to worry about it anymore. But if you are worried about your movements, then you should have a chat with your midwife and phone them up and ask them. So why is this important? Why is it important that we actually understand which way that baby is lying in the womb? Well, it's important because it influences labour, and it influences how babies come through the pelvis during labour. What happens is we have our wee baby here, and our wee baby has, you will have heard of soft spots on the head, and that means that the baby's skull bones can move over each other during labour and make their heads smaller to fit through the widest parts of the pelvis. Now, unfortunately, we're not made like buckets. We're not the same all the way through the pelvis. What tends to happen is that we are different diameters all the way through. So, ideally, babies will have their back towards the front in an anterior position towards the front. Their chin will be tucked in to their chest. Their arms are nicely folded in, their knees are bent, and their head's nicely tucked in. Okay, that means that we've got a nice little round, smallest part of the head coming through the biggest part of the pelvis. Okay, so it starts like that. Okay, and then what happens is the big muscle of the uterus round here starts to squeeze, and that's what we call a contraction. So that starts to squeeze, and it's like any muscle that aches when it squeezes, and so that applies some pressure to the baby, and then the baby's head moves down onto the cervix here. And the cervix then, that pressure will then stimulate another contraction, and the uterus moves down again and pushes down again and pushes the baby's head down onto the cervix, and that stimulates another contraction. Now if you have a nice even pressure, nice round even pressure on the cervix, those contractions are going to be nice and even. Okay, so if you feel the back top of part of your head here, you'll notice that it's nice and round and even. Now when babies are with their backs on mum's backs, then their heads tend to be a little bit straighter, and so what you've got is an uneven pressure on the cervix, so you get uneven contractions, and you're also getting an awkward diameter of the head trying to fit through the pelvis, and so that makes for a very uneven labour and a lot of aches and pains in the back here. Okay, now the main influences in our everyday life today that put babies in this position tend to be the fact that we get home and we slouch. We do this nice lovely slouch in our chair when we get home. Sometimes we put our feet up and we have a nice relaxing slouch, and that creates a nice lovely hammock for baby to rest back on, so their back tends to swing onto mum's back. Okay, so babies are in that position all the time. Now and so then during the day your back is aching, so to relieve that pressure and to bring that baby into a different position, we have to, you can use a chair and turn over in your chair and actually just lean on the back of a chair, and that just brings the hammock forward, and so babies are going to lie more forward. Okay, so leaning over the back of the chair, and that's going to help relieve this lower backache that baby's giving you. Okay, so those are just a couple of tips about getting baby into the right position. Now if you have a chat with your midwife about baby's position, then she can give you some more exercises to bring babies back off your back. Okay, that's it.